I audible to everyone? Is my screen clearly visible? So should I start? Welcome everyone. So according to the medical literature, currently world is experiencing two concomitant phenomena. The first is the neglected epidemic of chronic disease, and secondly, the widespread deficiency of selected nutrients. So today in our webinar, we will be discussing one of the nutrients, which is magnesium. Little bit about its background. It is magnesium. It is the eighth most common element in the Earth's crust. It is the second most common intracellular cation. It is the fourth most mineral in the body after sodium, potassium, and calcium. Magnesium, it was recognized as an element in periodic table in 1755, but it is used as in human medicine since 1697. Before its recognition as an element, it was first used by Dr. Nehemiah Brew. Sir first isolated it from the Epsom salts, which are found in the wells in England, and since then it is being used for abdominal pain, constipation, strain, cerebral edema. Coming to the source, almost around 10% of magnesium it is available from water, and rest of the source it is from nuts, seeds, cereals, grains, legumes, veggies. So as it is in our Indian diet, it is a balance of all these the requirements or the source, we can say. So the dietary allowance it is around 6 milligrams per kg per day, or approximately it is around 400 to 420 milligram per day for the adult men, around 320 milligram per day for adult women, and 350 milligram for pregnancy and lactating women. So as we can see, our Indian diet specifically it includes all of these. So the deficiency of magnesium it is not quite like comparatively it is more in the Western countries compared to India. Where it loses its nutritional status. Coming to the storage and distribution in the human body, the total magnesium content or it is around 53% of magnesium it is stored in bone, out of which 30% is exchangeable. In muscular tissues it is around 23%, in soft tissues it is around 19%. The significant thing over here is that only 1% of magnesium is present extracellularly, that is in serum and RBCs, and it is also distributed in ionized complex and protein bound form. So the normal range in human blood it is from 1.8 to 2.5 milligram per deciliter. Three major organs, that is GI tract where absorption occurs, the kidney where reabsorption occurs, and in the bones and muscles where the storage occurs. Magnesium in the gut. The transport, the absorption, it specifically occurs in terminal jejunum and ileum. The first mechanism, that is passive paracellular mechanism, almost 80 to 90% of magnesium absorption occurs over here through the tight junction. There is low expression of claudin in terminal jejunum and ileum.
Dr. Krunal, can you stop your video? And
because of low expression of claudin, and this is the reason why maximum of absorption in the GIT it occurs from terminal jejunum and ileum. The second mechanism it is active transcellular transport mechanism. Around 10% of magnesium it is absorbed over here. It is occurring through TRPM6 conduction. It is specifically located in distal ileum. Now coming to excretion, as you know, it is through kidneys. Around 2400 milligram of magnesium it is filtered per day. Out of which 90 to 95% is reabsorbed, and only 3 to 5% is excreted in the urine, which is approximately 100 milligrams. So the elimination process in proximal convoluted tubule, it is 10 to 25% is reabsorbed. In thick ascending loop of Henle, 50 to 70% is absorbed here. It is because of the transcellular transport through tight junction, which is clotting dependent, and in distal convoluted tubule, around 10% is reabsorbed, which is through TRPM6 channel. Now, it follows a circadian rhythm, and so the maximum excretion of magnesium it is occurring at the night. The relation between claudin and kidney, specifically talking about claudin, it is claudin 16. Its localization is in thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. It has permeability for sodium or calcium and magnesium, and so the lumen positive voltage drives calcium and magnesium reabsorption paracellularly from thick ascending limb of loop of Henle via claudin 16. Talking about the physiological role, magnesium it acts as a cofactor in almost more than 300 physiological reactions. Cofactor in stabilization of mitochondrial membrane, protein synthesis, cellular energy production and storage, cell growth and reproduction, DNA and RNA synthesis. Also, magnesium manages bone metabolism, nerve conduction, cardiac excitability, neuromuscular conduction, muscular contraction, vasomotor tone, and blood pressure. Also, magnesium is significant role in insulin synthesis, insulin sensitivity, and glucose utilization. Now, magnesium in intracellular calcium regulation. As it is well known that magnesium acts as a physiological antagonist to the calcium. So, it occurs by two mechanisms. The first is by the inhibition of ryanodine receptor. The magnesium, it inhibits or blocks the ryanodine receptor, and because of that, it also stimulates the reuptake of calcium. And the second mechanism by which this occurs is inhibition of sodium calcium antiporter. Magnesium over here is competes with the antiporter, and it lowers intracellular calcium after depolarization. Also, magnesium antagonizes calcium-dependent release of acetylcholine at uterine place. The role of magnesium in different body functions. The first, we'll compare magnesium and the nervous system. In nervous system, magnesium blocks calcium channels on the NMDA receptor. So what happens is, whenever there is low serum magnesium, it potentiates glutamatergic neurotransmission, because of which there is increase in excitotoxicity, leading to oxidative stress, and ultimately it leads to this condition is quite well associated with several neurological disorders like stroke, migraine, chronic pain, epilepsy, depression, anxiety. And so, treatment with magnesium in such condition proves to be beneficial, and it has positive effects in this condition. Same way, magnesium and the cardiovascular system. The magnesium represents a central therapeutic agent in cardiovascular medicine, since it has antioxidative, anti-inflammatory, and anti-arrhythmic properties. So, what magnesium does is, it competes with sodium on vascular smooth muscle cells. It increases prostaglandin E and nitric oxide production. It suppresses circulating sodium potassium ATPase activity. and it decreases intracellular calcium and sodium levels. All this ultimately leads to reduction in blood pressure by decreasing the vascular tone and resistance. So in CVS, a combination of magnesium and taurine, it is beneficial in lowering the blood pressure, retards the atherogenesis, prevents arrhythmias, and it stabilizes the platelets. The mechanism of action possible here by both of the drugs, that is magnesium and taurine, that it both reduce the intracellular calcium and sodium levels, which is beneficial over here. Magnesium and renal system. In case of CKD, there is a decrease in GFR, which leads to reduced magnesium excretion, and ultimately it leads to hypermagnesemia in case of a chronic kidney disease patient. Same way in magnesium and diabetes metabolic syndrome. So magnesium, it is an important cofactor in metabolism of carbohydrates. So what happens over here is, in diabetes, there is renal magnesium excretion, it increases, which leads to magnesium deficiency. And because of that, there is decrease in glucose utilization, there is increased insulin resistance, the blood pressure will increase. Also, there will be dyslipidemia noted, which ultimately leads to the complications which are like retinopathy and neuropathy. So over here, magnesium supplement proves to be beneficial by it inverts the association with glycemic control as well as diabetic incidence. It increases the HDL, it reduces triglycerides, LDL, and total cholesterol. So a dose of 100 milligram per day of magnesium, it reduces all these risks by around 15%. So similarly, over here also a combination of magnesium and taurine, it improves insulin resistance and it improves endothelial dysfunction in diabetes mellitus. Now, magnesium and pregnancy. As we know, magnesium sulfate is a drug of choice in eclamptic seizures, and it is a drug of choice in prevention of seizures in severe preeclampsia or gestational hypertension with severe features. Also, if the magnesium sulfate is off-labelly used as a tocolytic to stop the preterm labor. The mechanism of action here by the magnesium sulfate is the antagonistic effect to calcium-induced vasoconstriction, which will lead to vasodilation, mainly of the blood vessels, and also magnesium blocks the seizure effect. The well-known Pritchard regimen, the loading dose which is given intravenously and intramuscularly, 20 ml of 20% solution, which is 4 grams. It is given IV slowly over 5 minutes, which is followed by 10 ml of undiluted 50% solution, 10 grams. It is given in 5 grams in each butter. Deep intramuscular injection is given. And the maintenance dose, which is intramuscularly given, 10 ml of undiluted 50% butter every 4 hours. The treatment is continued either for 24 hours after birth or the last convulsion, whichever occurs the last. The toxicity of magnesium sulfate. Symptoms which alerts toxicity. The first symptoms to appear is hyporeflexia, or we can say decreased deep tendon reflex. It is followed by decrease in blood pressure, vomits, gains, depression, respiratory depression, coma, and cardiac arrest. The management, stop the infusion if possible. Symptomatic support like respiratory support can be given, and the antidote IV 1 gram of calcium gluconate, 10 ml of 10% solution over 3 minutes. Now, magnesium sulfate in asthma. So, possible mechanism of action here is that There could be reduction of intracellular calcium level, muscle relaxation, or reduction of inflammatory mediators. All these are beneficial in acute severe asthma. So a dose of 2 gram intravenous mixed with 50 ml dextrose water over 10 to 15 minutes. And the possible side effects could be nausea and flushing. Digitalis-induced arrhythmia and quinidine-induced arrhythmia. In torsades de pointes, it is used as prevention of recurrent episodes and in acute treatment of torsades de pointes. Possibly mechanism of action is that it blocks inward calcium currents, and the dose of 1 to 2 grams intravenously with 50 ml of dextrose water over 5 to 60 minutes boosts benefit. It is given intravenously 1 gram per hour. Now coming to the causes of hypomagnesemia, it is decreased intake, as we have seen that the dietary source is a good source of magnesium. So a decreased intake leads to hypomagnesemia. In case of impaired gastrointestinal absorption, in case of redistribution of intracellular magnesium, which can be seen in pregnancy, lactation, and cardiopulmonary surgery. Increased renal loss of magnesium, which is seen in case of CKD, which is not seen in CKD, and drug-induced hypomagnesemia. Now coming to drug-induced hyper and hypomagnesemia, the drug groups like aminoglycosides, beta-adrenergic agonists, cisplatin, diuretic, and proton pump inhibitor. These are the group of drugs which leads to hypomagnesemia, but only there is drug therapy, lithium therapy, which leads to hypomagnesemia. The clinical manifestations of hypomagnesemia, as we can see, the impact of the hypomagnesemia, it is seen in almost every system of the body. Like in neuromuscular system, the manifestation is tremor, muscle fasciculation, increase. In CNS, it manifests as agitation, depression, seizures. In CVS, manifestation would be cardiac arrhythmia, GIT, loss of appetite, metabolic hypokalemia, and hypocalcemia. Also, hypomagnesemia, it is very common in ICU patients. Almost it is seen in 90% of patients, those who are admitted in surgery ICU. 90% of patients have hypomagnesemia. Similarly, 65% of ICU patients, those who are on drug therapy, in them also hypomagnesemia is seen. So, it is one of the major causes of mortality in ICU patients. So, as earlier seen, the major causes are reduction of intestinal absorption of magnesium and increased loss of magnesium by renal. Also, the long-term PPIs. As we know, the patients who are in ICU admitted, those patients are kept on long-term PPIs. So what happens is, the PPIs, they increase the pH of the intestine, and because of that, the affinity of magnesium to the TRPM 6 and 7 channel, it decreases, and which blocks intestinal absorption of magnesium and ultimately leads to hypomagnesemia. So, it is quite essential that magnesium sulfate should be used in ICU patients to correct the hypomagnesemia. And ultimately, the benefits will be decrease in mortality rate, decrease in the length of ICU stay. Similarly, in case of hypermagnesemia, it is usually iatrogenic and associated with impaired kidney function like CKD, in bowel disorder and old age. Lithium therapy, as earlier said, one of the causes of hypomagnesemia, excess magnesium salt consumption. The clinical manifestation of hypermagnesemia, it is usually serum magnesium levels present. So, at a level of 3.9 to 5.2 millimole per liter, the alarming sign of hypermagnesemia, so we can say the toxicity of magnesium, it is seen by the sign of absence of the teeth tendon reflex, and this proves to be an alarming sign for hypermagnesemia, or we can say toxicity. So the treatment in case of hypomagnesemia, if the hypomagnesemia is mild, oral magnesium is sufficient, and in case of severe hypomagnesemia, 4 to 8 gram of magnesium sulfate at rate of 1 gram per hour is beneficial. In case of hypermagnesemia, the treatment option is discontinuation of magnesium administration and use of supportive therapy, administration of calcium gluconate, which is the antidote, and in case of severe symptomatic hypomagnesemia, even hemodialysis is required. Now, a little about magnesium sulfate pharmacology. It is available in injectable form, 50% of magnesium sulfate. The uses, as earlier seen, hypomagnesemia, eclampsia, bursitis bronchitis, acute asthma, preterm labor, which is used where it is used off-labelly. The contraindications for magnesium sulfate, it is diabetic coma, heart work, and 2 hours preceding delivery for mothers with preeclampsia. The pharmacodynamics, it depresses CNS, it blocks peripheral neuromuscular transmission, it has anticonvulsant effect, it decreases acetylcholine as end played by motor neuron impulse, it promotes osmotic retention of fluid in colon. About absorption, the onset of magnesium is given by IV route, it is immediate, and by IM route, it is within 1 hour, and the duration of action by IV route lasts up to 30 minutes, and by IM intramuscular route about 3 to 4 hours, and excretion through urine. Now, talking about the other preparations of magnesium, one of it is saline laxatives, which is used in constipation. The preparation of saline laxatives are magnesium sulfate, magnesium hydroxide, magnesium citrate. It acts by 2 mechanisms. First is osmotic water retention, and the second by CCK release. So what happens is, in osmotic water retention, it stimulates peristalsis, and CCK release, it leads to intraluminal fluid and electrolyte accumulation. And because of that, the obvious side effect is urgency to defecate and watery stools. So a dose of 5 to 15 grams dissolved in 100 to 200 ml of water proves to be beneficial. Similarly, antacid, the other preparation, that is megaltrate. Megaltrate consists of magnesium hydroxide and aluminum hydroxide. The action, it reduces gastric acid chemically, that is, it neutralizes the hydrogen with hydroxide and it raises the gastric pH. So this preparation is absorbed poorly in stomach. Now, the side effect of magnesium hydroxide is diarrhea, and the side effect of aluminum hydroxide is constipation. So megaltrate, this preparation, which have a combination of both, if they counteract each other's side effect, it proves to be beneficial, and so the effect lasts about 2 to 3 hours, and it is in oral suspension available. The routes of administration, orally, the drug preparation is megaltrate, and it is used as antacid. Inhalationally, the magnesium sulfate, it is beneficial in bronchial asthma. Intravenous and intramuscular route of administration, the preparation is magnesium sulfate, which is used in arrhythmia, eclampsia, acute asthma. Topically, it acts as hygroscopic, and the preparation is magnesium chloride, which is used in burns. And orally, magnesium hydroxide, it is used as a laxative. Now, mag diction, it is like magnesium reduces the intensity of addiction to opioid and psychostimulants. Now, in our society, we see several addictions. One of it is like nicotine, smoking. So, what happens is the smoker gets a reward system. Like after smoking, it is a kind of stimulating the reward system. So, what magnesium does over here is it acts as it gives a moderate effect of stimulating the reward system. So, in such addictions, magnesium could act as a replacement for the addiction. And the other possible mechanisms that it decrease of sodium nitric oxide synthase activity and the reduction of postsynaptic NMDA receptor activity, which ultimately facilitates the reward system. So, magnesium in area of addiction, it could prove to be beneficial, but further research and development is required over here. And recently, the application of magnesium, recently published articles showed its efficacy and safety. One of that was analgesic effect of magnesium sulfate during total intravenous anesthesia. A randomized control clinical study was done, and it concluded that magnesium sulfate is a safe and effective option for intraoperative anesthesia when avoiding or decreasing opioid use is required. Similarly, one more random RCT was done, comparative study of magnesium, sodium valproate and concurrent magnesium sodium valproate therapy in the prevention of migraine headache. And it also concluded that magnesium could enhance the anti-migraine properties of sodium valproate in combination therapy and reduce the required sodium valproate dose for migraine prophylaxis. Also, a randomized controlled trial of effect of magnesium on the dose of rocuronium for deep neuromuscular blockade. It also concluded that magnesium reduced the dose of rocuronium required for deep neuromuscular blockade approximately 20% without affecting the recovery time after administration of sugammated. Same way, RCT was done intravenous magnesium sulfate versus morphine sulfate in relieving the renal colic. It also concluded the administration of IV 60 mg per kg of magnesium sulfate would be as effective as morphine in reducing renal colic without any further complications. And the last RCT, that is nebulized magnesium sulfate in bronchiolitis, only this was the RCT where magnesium sulfate was concluded that it is not superior to the standard therapy in children with moderate to severe bronchiolitis. So, a summary of published articles, it is seen that magnesium sulfate is almost beneficial in every condition, like in intraoperative anesthesia, it is safe and effective. In migraine, it enhances anti-migraine properties of sodium valproate. In deep neuromuscular blockade, it reduces required dose of rocuronium. In renal colic, also it is effective, but only in severe bronchiolitis, because it is not like magnesium is not useful. It is just that it is not superior to the standard therapy. So, at the conclusion, magnesium, it is termed as the forgotten nutrient. As during the webinar, we have seen that the effect of magnesium right from the physiological part to the pharmacological part, including the day-to-day problems like diabetes mellitus, it is a chronic condition, to a very serious complication like eclampsia and surgical ICU emergency. Everywhere, magnesium has beneficial effects, and so one of the observed things is clinically it is most ignored electrolyte, but there is another scope of research in magnesium as a dose-specific nutraceutical. Now, nutraceutical over here, it proves to be beneficial since the source of magnesium from the dietary, it is easily available. It is also easily available from water. So the nutraceutical could also prove to be cost effective. So this thing could be a game changer in field of magnesium as a nutraceutical. And the take-home message after this webinar would be: don't underestimate the power of common man. But obviously, our common man over here is magnesium. To the end, thank you. I would like to thank you, the MPS, Medical Pharmacology Society, for giving me this opportunity, and respected President Dr. Shivamurthy sir for providing this platform to present my webinar in presence of such an esteemed audience. I would also like to extend my gratitude to respected HOD Dr. Sachin Kuchia sir, and thank him for providing me this opportunity. Sir has always helped me to enrich my knowledge and motivate me in every aspect of life. So, thank you. Thank you so much. Am I audible to everyone? Is my screen clearly visible? So should I start? Yes. Welcome everyone. So according to the medical literature, currently world is experiencing two concomitant phenomena. The first is the neglected epidemic of chronic disease, and second is the widespread deficiency of selected nutrients. So today in our webinar, we will be discussing one of the nutrients, which is magnesium. Little bit about its background. It is magnesium. It is the eighth most common element in the Earth's crust. It is the second most common intracellular cation. It is the fourth